You're listening to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses. Each week, you'll hear my thought-provoking conversations with Olympians, pro athletes, CEOs, elite coaches, best-selling authors, and other high performers to uncover their secrets to success. Get ready to be inspired each week when we talk about leadership, teamwork, work ethic, and more. Are you ready? Let's go. This week, my guest is two-time World Series champion and 2016 World Series MVP, Ben Zobrist. In 2000, Ben graduated high school and thought his baseball career was over. He wasn't drafted in high school and didn't have plans to play baseball in college. Then, his high school baseball coach told him about a nearby college tryout. Ben dipped into his birthday money for $50 to pay the tryout registration fee. At the tryout, he caught the attention of a college coach who offered him a scholarship, and the rest is history. Ben was eventually drafted in the 6th round of the Major League Baseball draft and went on to become a 3-time MLB All-Star and 2-time World Series champion. In 2015, he led the Kansas City Royals to a World Series title with some of the biggest hits in the series. The next season, in 2016, Ben led the Chicago Cubs to the team's first World Series title in 108 years, ending the longest championship drought in North American sports history. For his efforts, he was named the 2016 World Series Most Valuable Player after batting .357 in the series and tallying the game-winning hit in Game 7 to lead the Cubs to their historic victory. Over his 14-year Major League Baseball career, he appeared in over 1,600 games and was one of the most adaptable and versatile players of all time. Known as a super utility player and the ultimate team guy, Ben played shortstop, first base, second base, third base, and all 3 outfield positions, a remarkable feat at the major league level. Ben and I recently sat down to explore his career, and he shared a candid, behind-the-scenes look at the mindsets, techniques, and philosophies that powered his journey into the baseball history books. Our conversation is filled with powerful life and career lessons that will help you achieve championship-level success in anything. Ben shared practical ideas on how to increase your self-belief, improve your focus, and maximize your value to any team or organization by becoming more versatile. Most importantly, if you have a personal or professional goal in mind and aren't sure if it can be done, then this conversation is for you. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Ben Zobrist. Hey, Ben, how's it going?
It's going good. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it, man.
Ben, before we get into the meat of our conversation, I have to say, I'm a New York Mets fan, lifelong New York Mets fan. I still have nightmares of what you did to my team in the 2015 World Series, but it certainly worked out well for you, Ben.
No, man, 2015 was a really incredible year, and, the Mets, they had one of the best pitching staffs in the league by far, so, we, as a Royals team at the time, we were just doing whatever we could to try to put the ball in play against some of those guys. But that Royals team just had a never say die kind of attitude. So, I'm sorry about that, but not sorry. You know what I mean?
I figured you wouldn't be too sorry. I want to go back to high school. So after high school, you have a moment where you don't think you're going to play baseball after high school. What changed? How did it change? And how did everything get moving from that point forward?
Yeah, well, growing up in a small town in Illinois, there wasn't a lot of places to be recruited, and I was a decent player, but I wasn't an all-state player. There was nothing exceptional about me. I think I graduated at about 6'1", 160 pounds. So it was just not anything that somebody would think, oh, he's going to end up playing in the major leagues someday. So I was a good player, not recruited. My high school coach thought I was good enough that I should at least go to a scout day. So thanks to him, if he didn't tell me about this opportunity, I probably never would have even played beyond high school. When I finished high school, that was the last day I thought I would ever play baseball, organized baseball in my life. And so my high school coach just says, hey, you should go to this scout day. There's going to be some college coaches there. I think you might be good enough to maybe get some looks by somebody. And he's like, it'll just cost you $50. And I thought, well, what's $50, I said, was a lot of money to me at the time. I had to use my birthday money to pay for this, to go do a scout day where you barely do it. I mean, you're standing around most of the time, and then you're doing a few pitches, a few ground balls, a few swings. And out of that tryout, a college coach named Elliot Johnson from an NAIA school called Olivet Nazarene saw me, and he said, "Hey, I think you can play for our team," and gave me an opportunity to go play college ball. So without that opportunity, without my high school coach and that college coach, Coach Johnson, seeing something in me, I never would have played beyond high school. So it's crazy.
What gave you the conviction to spend that $50? Like you said at the time, $50 was a lot. You had to dip into your birthday money. What gave you the conviction to spend that $50 on that instead of something else?
You know what? I just loved the game. I loved baseball, and in my mind, I was like, well, what one more day of baseball. You know, I get to put the uniform on again. I get to go compete and see what how I measure up against some of the other area players. And I kind of looked at it like it's a privilege to be invited to this thing. So anytime I saw there being some sort of like game that I could play in, like an all-star game or something like that, I looked at it as a privilege of, well, I was kind of selected to go to this thing, and they weren't inviting everybody in the area to go. So they were like, hey, we want some of the best area players there. He was one of our best area players in Peoria area in Illinois at the time. So they invited me. And so I thought, it's a worthy thing to be invited to something like that.
Was there a moment in college that you said, you know what, hey, I may be able to do this thing at the next level. I might be able to do this for a living. When did that kind of click for you?
Well, when I was just a young college player is when I looked around at some of the guys that were juniors and seniors, and I knew that there were some players that were in the NAIA level in college that were getting drafted still. And I knew that baseball is a lot different than football and basketball in that a lot of baseball players from different divisions, JUCO, D1, D2, D3, all across the board, they'll get drafted. It's way less about the competition you played against in college, and it's more just about, can you play, and do you have skills, and are you developing, and do they see an upside to it, right? So I saw other guys at the NAIA level that were getting drafted, and I thought, if this guy can get looks, I've got 3 years to develop. Why can't I? I just had this belief that, like, if somebody else can do it, why can't I do it? I mean, I got time, I can work. I knew that I had the work ethic to be able to do something like that at some level.
So you knew that you had the work ethic. How did you know you had the work ethic? I read stories. I read a story about you that said you used to do 100 sit-ups every night before bed. First off, is that true?
I mean, I'm sure there was times during my childhood that I did that. I mean, my dad told a story recently about how he was putting me to bed one night, and I was like, I don't know, 10, 11 years old or something like that. And I was literally doing sit-ups and push-ups before going to bed. And he went up and told my mom, he's like, I think there's something wrong with that kid. He did, because, like, I was just very motivated at a young age, not thinking. The thing was, I wasn't thinking about playing in the major leagues. I wasn't like dreaming of, I'm going to do that someday. I watched movies like Rocky. I watched movies like The Natural, Hoosiers, Field of Dreams. Like, I was just so inspired by like sports inspirational stories that I was like, what if I could win a state championship someday? Like that, to me, like that was as far as I thought I could go. No one I had ever been around had ever made it to professional anything. So for me, it was just this idea that I want to do something great on the athletic field at some point. And I know that this is the way. The way is you got to work. That's one thing my dad put into me at a very young age is you have to put in the work and the mental toughness when nobody else is willing to do it. And so even though he was surprised that I was doing that late at night right before I went to bed, he was also the guy when we were practicing where he never let me give less than 100%. And he was like, hey, I know you got more. He was a mentally tough guy early on in my young childhood. And even now he would say I was probably over the top. He was over the top, but there was a level where I just believed like, that's just what you have to do if you want to be able to do something great.
What was it about those movies and those stories that you think really drew you in and really connected with you?
I mean, I've always really been inspired by the underdog story. I think primarily a lot of those stories have to do with somebody that no one would expect to make it to that level, or the team that wasn't expected to make it, whether it was Hoosiers or whether it was like Rudy, or, I just think of even the Natural where he missed out on his opportunity, and it was just, he was the old guy. So he's not really going to come back and be able to do something incredible. And then sure enough, he surprises everybody. And I'm from a small town. I was a smaller kid. I didn't grow until late into high school to even be 6'1". Like my freshman year, I was 5'5", 112 pounds, soaking wet. And nowadays, if I was playing baseball in the summer at that age, looked like that as a freshman, almost turning 16. I mean, I was like a late bloomer. Like scouts would have written me off. College coaches would have probably passed me over. There's just so many kids that I feel like give up on the sport because they haven't grown yet, or they're not very good. They're not as good as they want to be. Everybody else has passed them up. And I was lucky enough to be in a small town where I was playing against competition where I could make the team and I could play well and be one of the better players and get opportunities. And those opportunities led to me believing that I was probably much better than I really was at the time. And that faith and that belief and that work ethic kind of worked itself into, I ended up being one of the better area players my high school year or my senior year. And that's as far as I thought I might go. But ultimately, like, God had more for my story.
And I want to go back a couple of minutes. You talked about, you said if I have a couple of years here in college, I can develop and I could get better. What did that plan look like? Did you put that plan together? Was it like a 3-year plan, or was it, I'm going to set goals in 6-month increments? Take me behind the scenes on that a bit.
You know what? I never set hard-lined goals at the time. I don't know if that felt a little too restrictive to me or what, but I think that what was special about my makeup, even as a college kid, was the ability to focus and stay locked in with what I wanted to be really good at. Like, I couldn't wait till Friday and Saturday night so that I could go to the batting cage by myself and hit off the tee. Or like, I couldn't wait. I would ask a buddy, hey, would you go and throw to me at the cage? Like, I need to work on this or work on that. Like, outside of practice, like, this is after practicing all week long, right? And probably being tired. And like, that's all I wanted to do with the rest of my time is like, I know I want to get better and I know I've got to get better. So when can I get in the cage when nobody else is in there? And so I was a cage rat, and I was finding a way to get better when other people were relaxing and having fun on the weekends. So I sacrificed a lot of socialization at those ages because I thought of it like a job. It was like, hey, this is paying for my school. And so if it's a job and it's paying for my school and I want to do something with it, it's what I knew how to focus on. Like, maybe I wasn't socially as gifted at that time to be able to like know how to connect with as many people as maybe I could do nowadays. However, I did know how to connect with a baseball and a bat, and that's what I knew, and that's what I was driven to pursue at that time.
So Ben, fast forward a little bit, you become just an extremely versatile player. I mean, one of the most versatile players in Major League Baseball history. You played shortstop, you played first, second, third, all 3 outfield positions. You even pitched an inning at the end of your career, which was awesome. What are some of the ingredients that go into just being really versatile and adaptable? Regardless, if someone's listening, whether they're a baseball player, an athlete, work in business, a teacher, we're all, I think, better off when we're more versatile and adaptable. And you must have some great perspective on that.
Well, there's no question that was a big piece to why I had success and why I had opportunity even early on in my career, because I wasn't a guy that came up. Once again, I was never really the best guy on any team that I played on. So when I came up from the minor leagues, it was like, okay, let's just give this guy a shot to play a little bit. I failed, didn't play well, didn't hit well. They were like, okay, well, maybe he's going to be a guy that's a AAA guy. He's going to be an organizational guy that's going to help us out when we need him, kind of thing. And so I knew, like, batting wise, I had to pick it up and I had to learn. Well, when you're stuck in AAA, you can only do so much. Like, you have to face the best pitching to learn how to hit the best at times. And when the only opportunity for me was to play multiple positions in order to get extra at bats, I just saw it as a necessity of like, oh, well, if I want to be good at that level, this is the opportunity. The opportunity is there not at shortstop anymore. It's there in left field every 5 days when they play a lefty or something like that. And so it was, for me, Joe Maddon, it was a combination of the people around you have to have an open mind, but I also had to be flexible and open to it and not just pigeonhole myself and say, hey, I'm only a shortstop and that's what I do. And if that's not what you want me for, well, trade me. You know, like there's a lot of guys I see that they get so stuck in this is what I am and don't try to change me, that they don't have an open mind to what they could be. And they're actually blocking themselves from developing more skill and more opportunity in the future by doing what they're doing.
What would you have done in a situation, or what could someone do in a situation where, like you described Joe Maddon as being really open-minded, and that was a huge piece of it for you. You were open-minded, he was open-minded. But what if someone's working for playing for a manager or working for a boss or a leader who's not as open-minded? How can someone who's really versatile and adaptable, who wants to be a team player like that, get the leader on board with it?
Well, that's a challenge. I mean, I've heard a lot of players over the years that feel like they're stuck and that they can't really move and that it's out of their control. And my challenge to them is that whenever something feels stuck externally, like there's a good chance like you're not growing internally because you're so focused on what's going externally around you. Like, you have to do the internal work that is necessary for you to be ready when the opportunity presents itself. There is a lot that we can't control, but then there is quite a bit more that we can control that we should be focusing on. And so that was one thing that I, as a player, tried to do is, hey, yeah, I might be in AAA and not where I want to be, but there's a lot to get better at. There's a lot to grow in. There's a lot of ways that I need to experience the game and experience what I need to grow in order to be ready when the opportunity does present itself again. And by just people seeing that, a lot of times, if they see you grinding and becoming better as a human being, and they want to be around you, they find a way to get opportunities for you. You know, the people around you want to. And so my AAA coaches saw me. Guys that came into town that were working for the organization saw me. And the organization's like, who are we going to pull up that's not going to be a problem to the big league team, that's just going to help put, you know, what we need help with right now. And I do believe that all those mindsets end up factoring into the opportunities that you're presented with. And at the same time, you have to be ready for them. You have to be ready to make good on those. And you have to be grinding and know and start building those skill levels and those competencies when nobody's watching. And that's something that I was doing much earlier in my life than professionally.
Did you have any like mindset techniques or routines or things that you would do when you switched positions or when you were stepping into a new role? Like, how did you kind of balance it all? I mean, where everybody's multitasking, right? Like, we're like a society of multitaskers. You were the ultimate baseball multitasker.
Well, I appreciate that. I know that there were some things I did well and there were some things that I was weak in. And one of my greatest strengths is also one of my greatest weaknesses. And I was a very cerebral player. So there are different guys come at the game in different angles. You know, some guys are a lot of like the Latin players I played with are very emotional, heart-oriented. Like they have such passion and creativity with the way that they play the game. I was more cerebral and strategic and thought and intentional about like, what am I working on today? And what am I thinking about this particular play? So if I switched positions, immediately, as soon as I went from shortstop to right field, I knew what my keys were. I had done enough practice before the game where it's like, these are the keys that I have to focus on in right field. These are the keys that I have to focus on at shortstop. Okay, now that I'm out here in right field, I have a little bit more mental space to let my mind wander in between plays. and then come back because there's only a few responsibilities out there. Whereas when I was at shortstop, like there's a lot more responsibilities. There's cutoffs. There's situations where I got to hold runners on in between plays. There's thinking about this particular runner and his ability to steal a bag or this or that. Like there's just a lot more you're doing when you're in a keystone position as opposed to out in the corner outfield. So at first base, as a matter of fact, first base is one of the hardest positions when you're changing because, especially as a right-hander, like if you're holding the guy on, like you're holding him on, then you got to get to a position during the pitch. And as soon as the ball's hit, oftentimes you're going to the opposite direction from where the ball's hit. And then you got cutoffs where you got different situations with cutoffs that are challenging. So I had a harder time with first base and third base than I did any of the middle positions or outfield positions. And I think for me, cerebrally, I was really good because of that. But sometimes I would also get locked up because of that. Because I was thinking too much. And then boom, the play happened. And I was a split second later than I could have been because I didn't have all my keys locked in. So early on, as I was learning these new positions, there was a few times where I would catch myself just not being locked in. But that was one thing that was a gift of mine too, is like if my mind wandered, I was able to pull it back and be right in the moment pretty quickly most of the time.
How did you do that? Is there like a simple example of how you would kind of pull your mindset and focus back in?
Well, mindfulness is all about, first of all, recognition and awareness of what's actually happening. And a lot of people aren't even aware that their mind is wandering. And so I would just have like specific things I knew I wanted to focus on. Like if I'm in right field, a lot of times I would try to see the seams on the baseball. So there's no way you can see the seams on the baseball from right field. But if you're looking for the seams on the baseball, you're looking for the baseball. And then I would watch when there was a strikeout, I would watch the ball as the pitcher struck the guy out. And I was in my ready position and the guy swung and missed. And I kind of jumped for a second. The catcher throws the ball to third base. I'm watching the ball go to third, and then I'm watching it go to short, and then I'm watching it go to second and back to short, or back to third, and then back to the pitcher. And that is a way that I would lock into the baseball, whether or not the ball ever came to me, so that by the time when the ball actually was hit and getting within 100 feet of me in right field or 10 feet of me in right field, I actually could see the seams because I was so focused on the minutia of what was going on before the ball ever got close to me.
Again, the focus when nobody's watching. That's a theme I think that's come up a number of times already in our conversation. It's really, really fascinating, Ben. I want to talk about the World Series teams and the World Series championships.
Sure.
You had the good fortune of playing on 3 different World Series teams in 3 different organizations. 2008 with Tampa Bay, 2015 with the Royals, which we talked about at the outset. I'm still a little bitter about that one. And 2016 with the Cubs, which I think the world watched in complete awe as you all accomplished that championship for that franchise the first time in 108 years. You became the 8th player in Major League history to win back-to-back World Series with 2 teams. And I'm curious, you've got this unique vantage point. You, like I said, went to the World Series with 3 different organizations. What is it about a championship team that's different from just a great team?
Well, I'll say this. They're all different. There's no way I could say, well, this team was just like this team in various ways. They were all different. I think a big piece of it is momentum. So much of it is momentum because especially at that level, there's very little parity. There's a lot of parity and just it's just minutia that separates the team that ends up winning from the team that loses. And those teams caught fire oftentimes during the season to make them believe that they were a great team. And then in the playoffs, you got to catch a second fire. And that's where your pitchers have to pitch really well. If your pitchers are pitching well and they give you a chance offensively, I saw all those teams, even during the playoffs, go through offensive woes because you're facing some of the best pitchers in the league too. So offensively, there can be a little bit more of this like up and down situation, but pitching is really the common theme of all those great teams. Championship pitching. And I've said this to friends, like, if I was ever a GM, there's no way I would ever give a position player hundreds of millions of dollars. Like I just wouldn't do that because that's not how you win championships if I'm trying to win championships. If I'm just trying to sell jerseys and sell tickets, like, yeah, you got to get the guys that are going to sell tickets and people want to watch. But to win a championship, you need the 1, 2, 3 pitchers that are going to stop the best hitters in the league. Because those pitchers, if they're on, there's really nothing as a hitter you can do. Like those guys are going to lock the game down and give their team a chance late in the game to win the game late, even if they have, some of the best hitters on the team. So for me, pitching was the consistent thing, watching those guys that were so phenomenal, keeping players off balance. And then you just have to, they're the right time, right moment in the game. I look at the Kansas City team, and that was a team that was so clutch, knew how to hang in there until late in the game. Out of the 11 wins that you have to win a World Series championship, I think we came from behind in the 7th inning or later 6 or 7 times out of those 11 wins. And that's just unheard of in the playoffs. Like, I'd like to see a stat that goes along with that because that team just had a never say die. You can't beat us until the final out. And there's just something special about each of those teams.
And things get, like, having the opportunity to play in those 3 different World Series, was there one thing that you experienced or learned in 2008 that you were able to bring to the experience in 2015 or share with the guys in the clubhouse? Like, was there something you learned in that first World Series that you were able to utilize to your advantage in the next 2?
Well, failure is such an important, powerful part of courage, right? Because after you've already failed and you've already had the courage to step back up and you've gotten back there again, it's like, well, what's the worst that could happen? We could fail again. I could fail again. And you're like, well, it's happened once. Like, what's the big deal? You start realizing that each of those moments are not the last moment in your life. And even if it is, to make the most of it in that World Series moment is all about not being worried or afraid of what's going to come at the outcome. It's more about staying in that exact moment, focusing on what you need to focus on so that when the ball comes your way, you're ready for it. You're ready to react and respond and be the best version of yourself in the moment. And that's why it's so weird when it's finally over for guys because they're going, I'm done. Like that's all that we got to do. And then the celebration, and then the question is, okay, now what? What's the next thing? I had a massive experience like that especially after the Cubs World Series, because the Royals won, we won, and then it's where are you going to do it next? Well, the Cubs haven't been won in 108 years. Let's go do that. And then when that's done, it's like, now what? Right? So that was where I had to start really doing a lot of internal work because all the external goals at that point, they don't motivate you the same way that they used to. At least they didn't for me. And so I had to find a way to be super motivated to be the best version of myself without the trophy in mind. It was more about like development, growth, making everybody else around me better. And those are the things that really fire me up, in my life now.
That's super fascinating, to think about it that way, that once the trophy was something that you'd kind of checked off the box, you have to develop that inner motivation in other ways. We've talked about it. Obviously, the 2-time World Series champion, 2016, the World Series MVP for the Cubs in that iconic series that nobody will ever forget, especially those folks in Chicago. You're an Illinois native. Did you fully appreciate the enormity of that in the moment, or has it kind of had a chance to marinate and it's gotten bigger for you?
I think I understand it a lot more now than I did at the time. But like I said, at the time, you're so focused on just doing your job, and it was all very surreal, and you're not prepared for it. I don't think there's any way you could be prepared for a moment like that. And you're getting asked to do Jimmy Fallon and Conan O'Brien and, Saturday Night Live and Disney World on a private jet and all this crazy stuff that to me was so foreign to this small town kid from the Midwest. And yet I was aware that like the Cub Cardinal rivalry that I grew up I was actually rooting for the Cardinals side of it growing up. Like, I knew it was a big deal that the Cubs hadn't won for a very, very long time. And then here I am on the Cubs side of it, Wrigley Field, like the nostalgia, the 108-year curse, the Billy Goat, all that stuff. The one moment that I really stopped in the midst of play and wondered what's really going on here was when Rajai Davis hit the home run off of Aroldis Chapman, and I was like, okay, there's something bigger going on here than just a normal baseball World Series Game 7 here. Like, this is crazy that this is happening. And the way that we ended up winning it was so nuts too that after it was all said and done, I had a massive low that happened to me, like a massive, wait, what do I do now? Like, how do I play the game now? How do I find the motivation to do the same things that I did? And there was a big identity crisis for me after that moment of winning the World Series and being the World Series MVP and all this stuff that I never thought was going to be part of my story until that moment.
And I'm curious, as we start to wrap up our conversation, now that there's a few years between your career and or between now and your career, you've had a chance to get away from the game a little bit as a player and reflect. You talked about that little bit of an identity crisis and that low after the 2016 World Series. Have you had a chance to really think through and identify what is going to drive you and where the goals and enthusiasm are going to come from in this next phase of your journey?
Oh, absolutely. I'm probably more excited about this next phase of life than I've ever been in any phase of life. As far as the future goes and what is up ahead, I really love the opportunity to plug back in whenever I can. And so some of my dreams now are just transferred to the younger athletes, the parents, the coaches, the experience around their pursuit of some of these great earthly glories that we kind of pursue as an athlete. And it's so much fun, and it's definitely an amazing experience. And if I could go back, I would do some things different. There's no question. And so I think with some of the wisdom that you gain from some of those experiences, I find so much passion and motivation, learning how to try to communicate some of the things that I want to communicate to the younger generation of athletes that are out there. And they're different. They're so much better in a lot of ways. And yet, the stress around the game and the pressure around the game has risen to an even higher level than I think it used to be. So I've done a ton of work. I'm big on therapy, counseling, learning motivations that go beyond the extrinsic motivational patterns. And that's kind of where I've put a lot of time and passion.
Ben, this has been so much fun. I have learned so much from our conversation here. I feel like we could do just chapter upon chapter of your story as we dig in, but I really appreciate you spending some time with me and having a chance to dig in. Your story is fantastic, and I think it's a testament to the power of hard work and self-belief, and also others around you believing in you. That coach who told you to spend the $50 to go to the showcase, and Joe Maddon, who believed you were capable of playing multiple positions at the major league level. It's a combination of your self-belief and the belief of others, and I think that's what's so powerful about your story. So I really appreciate you spending a few minutes with me this week, Ben.
Well, thank you, Andrew. And I know that some of these young athletes, parents, coaches, as they're experiencing this, I was really fortunate growing up with the dad, the mom that I had, that I have, but the coaches that have plugged into me, mentors, all those people all along the way. I mean, all the way through the major leagues and everything. And that's why this organization that I started recently with young athletes is just so important to me. Champion Forward's the name of it, but that's what we're doing, is trying to help these young athletes and their parents and coaches experience this in a way together where they never lose connection as they're doing it, but that also the parents and the coaches really know how to support the young athletes best.
Ben, there is no question that you are a tarp puller. You're a forever part of the tarp puller community here on Everybody Pulls the Tarp. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with me, and we'll have to do this again soon. All right, Ben?
Awesome. Appreciate it, Andrew. Thank you.
thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew H. Moses. That's Andrew H. Moses. And be sure to sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Today's a great day to pull the tarp. I am rooting for you. See you next time.